Should I take up golf? Is it too late to start playing? I've never played before, but would I be able to do it? What a lot of strange questions. My name is Ian Currey and this is Thinking Out Loud. Come on, let me tell you what I think. My interests are far more to do with art or technology than sport or adventure. Art and technology often don't go together, but that's just me. If you know my life story, you'd think adventure would be more me, but that's just not the case. But did you notice I didn't really mention sport? Well, that's because sport for me holds very little interest. Football, or soccer as they call it here, I tend to agree with my mother, who once described it as 22 men kicking a bag of wind around. I'm surprised Mum knew the number of players who would be on the field. But other than that, very little interest. Although I do note that the Women's World Cup seems to have gone better for my home country than I think I expected. Well done, ladies. I'll watch a game of rugby, and I admit I enjoy cricket, but more for the social, cultural experience than any real interest in the game itself. Individual sports interest me more, but I can't say I've ever really been good at any of them. So why the sudden interest in golf? Let me tell you a story or two and show you how I have pedigree in that particular sport. As a school work experience project, I was assigned to a PGA tournament at one of the famous golf courses close to our school. This particular tournament was televised and had huge crowds attending. Royal St George's, though just a couple of miles from where I lived, was kind of hard to get to at the best of times. The roads were always clogged, and the railway station at Sandwich, like so many other stations, is just not near the place it claims to serve. Being local, we knew how to navigate around the problem. Bikes. Now, if you want a really good workout, try riding a bike in that area. Let me give you a little of the geography and history there. Deal, where I lived, had 3 castles built by Henry VIII in the 1500s. Now, partly because of that, the road along the coast didn't go any further north than what was left of Sandown Castle, which of the 3 had been the most pummeled over the years by the sea. Beyond the castle, sand dunes spread out to where the River Stour had once marked the entrance to a thriving port. After hundreds of years of nothing going on there at all, the area, unsuitable for building, had become the site of several famous golf courses. There were few paths, no streets, no trees, and certainly no streetlights, but we kids knew our way along the coast on bikes. South of there, the beaches were shingle, but as you headed north towards the Isle of Thanet, sand started becoming more and more in evidence. The sand dunes really were, I think, more a product of the river than the sea. But that slither of land that was left, that was navigable by bike, was very narrow. You can't ride on the golf course, and the sand dunes are impossible, and the beach itself, either sand or shingle, is just not for bikes. Our solution was to push the limits and ride as close to the edge of the golf course as we could without triggering a good telling off. On one occasion, 2 of us had already been warned to stick to the path, which was non-existent, or we'd be in big trouble, when I managed to find a new bunker that had been set for the important tournament. Off the rim I flew at full tilt, suddenly realizing that although the sand would be a soft place to land, that my bike was above me. I landed just a split second before the bike did. No time to throw my arms over my head. The chain sprocket dug into my head. The cut didn't bleed too badly, but certainly enough to shake me up. I lay in the bunker for a while, recovering. Bunkers are usually very peaceful places, most of the time. After working the tournament, we realized that there was pocket money to be made caddying on these courses. My brother made far more than I did because he knew the difference between a wood and an iron, but nonetheless, I caddied there a few times. We also realized that a lot of people who played golf on those courses couldn't hit a ball along the seaward fairways. The strong offshore winds would push their golf balls onto the one bit of land our bikes could handle. After the players were gone, we'd cycle back and forth picking up golf balls to be sold back to the golf club for yet more pocket money. Years later, a good friend and mentor took me to a golf course in Ireland. His famous son was playing and was top of the leaderboard. He put a club in my hands and showed me how to chip back and forth like a strange game of ping pong, all the time asking how I was doing in life and how my job was going and what about my friends and how I was looking after Hillary. General well-being questions. What a lovely friend he was. Right up to date, I own a golf cart, live within walking distance of a couple of reasonable courses, and if my friend's son is winning, I might even watch him on the TV. Pedigree. I've been around a couple of PGA tournaments. I've lay injured in a famous bunker and been coached by the father of a famous player. Surely, even though I've never swung a golf club, all that has to count for something, right? Can you see how silly it would be for me to claim to be a golfer? I'd have to start from scratch. And despite my lovely stories and despite owning a golf cart, if I were ever asked, what's your handicap? I'd have to answer, I don't know which end of the club to hold. The reality is that I'm mostly interested in a lovely walk along the beach or around here through the woods. They do hide golf courses in some lovely places, don't they? I'm sure you will have heard versions of the statement, golf has too much walking to be a good game and just enough game to spoil a good walk. Being around golf, knowing a famous golfer, and even laying bleeding in a bunker is all interesting, I'm sure, but counts for not one stroke. On the other hand, I did mention those golf balls we'd collect. It seems our success in that area was due to people being qualified to call themselves golfers, not by their level of skill, but by getting on and putting into practice what little they knew. The crowds that followed the great players around are interesting too. I often wonder how many of them are there to learn or just admire someone who is at the top of their game. Jesus often had a huge crowd following him around the beaches too. I'm sure there were other people out there talking to crowds, but somehow Jesus held the attention of so many. Jesus had some interesting things to say about people who were his fans. Luke tells us of one such situation where there was a large crowd following Jesus. Then Jesus said to the crowd, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily and follow me." But wait a minute, These people were already on the sand dunes with Jesus. Weren't they already followers? I mean, they were following him around, weren't they? Do you see? Jesus was making a specific distinction between people who were enjoying the day out, those watching someone good at what they do, and those who wanted to learn and go all in. Going all in means you're not only hanging on every word, but you're applying what you learn to your life, even more than just turning over a new leaf, starting again with a whole new way of thinking. Watching Jesus heal someone and thinking, ooh, look at that. How did he do that? Is very different than applying the principles he taught of caring for the poor and needy and looking after widows and orphans and accepting a godly way of living our lives. Calling yourself a follower of Jesus is very fashionable these days, but are you really a follower or simply a spectator? Being around golf didn't do anything to make me a golfer. Hanging around church may not do anything much more to make me a Jesus follower either. There's nothing wrong with watching a good game of golf, and there's nothing wrong with admiring the things God does either. I mean, how can you not enjoy a gorgeous day outside, walking in a lovely place, enjoying creation? I'm not a golfer because I know the commitment it would take, the lolling around I would miss, and the changes I would probably have to make to my routine. On the other hand, I wonder at what point someone would actually recognize me as a golfer. What must I do to be a golfer? Surely if those numpty ball losing people were golfing, it can't be about skill. Now I've pushed this analogy far enough, haven't I? Being a Jesus follower, though, is very similar in some ways. In the end, it comes down to deciding that that's what you are going to be, and you're not just going to admire others who are. Until next time, goodbye.